All right. I want to be able to intro the film a bit and describe it for people at home, but it's kind of difficult. Essentially, it's Christopher Nolan, as we all know, and essentially, um, a secret agent has been assigned a mission of investigating time traveling to
Well,
avoid
yeah,
World War Three. I mean, it's quite
it
hard.
it's sci-fi in its kind of tone, but it's not really in the world of magic. I mean, again, it's like it's kind of harking back to like Interstellar, where it's like they're pushing the bounds of what science can suggest as possible. They don't go way in on it and explain, like exactly what's happening, but there is something in terms of radiation that can invert um, invert time or invert atoms within time. So certain things can interact in reverse
Yeah.
chronology to the rest of the world.
So if you've seen the trailer, there's a scene where there's a target block, and instead of shooting bullets into the block, he's catching them back in the gun. That's the basic premise of how this time travel works. It's in regular time, but certain items or people are inverted, so they're traveling backwards in time,
Yeah,
and
no,
that's
exactly.
kind of
And
the best way we could explain it.
yeah, yeah. This is we're trying to be as spoilers light as possible on this show. So we're really having to do some gymnastics around this film, but
Yeah, again, it is a very difficult one to describe in too much detail without giving anything away. But then, at the same time, it's hard to give too much away because it is. I can already predict that it's going to be a hard film for a lot of people to follow. Because I remember when Inception came out and people used to complain about that being hard to understand. Which personally, I didn't think it was that hard to
well,
understand.
yeah, because you're such a genius, aren't you?
Oh, it's just dreams. That's all it is.
In fairness, I kind of agree with you. I didn't struggle with the themes of that quite so much as people seem to suggest, but
Yeah, but that's what I mean. If people found Inception difficult, if you found Inception difficult, you're going to find this even harder. Because I'd say it's his most complex film in terms of the narrative ploys of it. So the time traveling aspect of this, it's more complicated than a lot of stuff he's done.
yeah, and it seems to roll some of the things that he's done in his previous films together as well. There's a bit of Inception in there for you. There's a bit of Memento in a way
Yeah,
as well. It's the way that time is experienced, and he's done this quite a bit in a lot of films. That's almost like the genre of Christopher Nolan films is it's like time sci-fi slash
I just imagine him
whatever.
sat there looking at his watch one day and just thinking, you know what? How can I fuck this up? How can I change this to make it so incomprehensible?
Yeah,
But all right, well, I'll kick it off just by saying I enjoyed it. I was slightly skeptical going in just because I'd purposely hadn't read any reviews and only seen like two of the trailers. But people I knew personally were saying seemed conflicted about it. But I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite Nolan film. I my favorite or not, I don't think it's his best film, but I thought it was pretty damn good.
yeah. No, I agree. I liked it quite a lot. There were bugbears, which I'm sure we'll get onto, but yeah. No, I thought in terms of you know delivering what I was hoping for from the film, it hit that on the head. Like I was up for a slightly mind bending action excitement kind of adventure thing, and it definitely did that. I mean, the score, the soundtrack, well, that's the same thing, and cinematography, all of that
Mm.
kind of stuff was very typical of a Nolan film. It created that scene that was so grand, so massive that it's captivating in itself regardless of anything else. Even before you introduce the story, it's already kind of got you hooked because it looks like
It looks fucking
double
great.
cream,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
it's just amazing.
I think that's kind of the appeal a lot of Nolan films. In that you don't have to completely follow it to really enjoy it. In that it looks fucking great, sounds amazing, and we should point out that Hans Zimmer, his usual collaborator, wasn't on Tenet. Because he's doing the Dune remake with Denis Villeneuve, which I'm also very excited about.
I was gonna say that's like your that's probably your most anticipated film at the moment, isn't it?
Well, yeah, although at the moment there's not too many to get excited about.
True.
But yeah, so it's a guy called Ludwig Göransson, who we weren't too familiar with, but he's done a fair bit before. Yeah, it's Ludwig Göransson he did Fruitvale Station and both the Creed movies, and he also did Black Panther, which quite fitting given our condolences today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was a good replacement, and then I was definitely thinking, fuck, this is Hans Zimmer 2.0. It's just someone else doing a good job of doing Hans Zimmer.
You can tell exactly what the brief was for this film.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the gripes I did have about the sound, though, was could you understand what they were saying all the time?
Yeah, for anyone that hasn't seen it yet, watch it and you'll completely understand what we're about to say, but half of the dialogue is you can't hear it. Like
it's almost incomprehensible. I thought, maybe this is just because the cinema has like ramped it up, but like it couldn't have been that consistent because it was just, the first scene, it opens up and it's a busy scene. There's a lot of sound in the background. There's a bit of music going on that kind of, sets the scene. It's atmosphere building. And I didn't realise they were speaking English at first. I thought it was one of these things where it's like the opening scene in a foreign country and they're all speaking the native tongue and you don't need to understand what they're saying. And I suppose in a way, you don't really need to know what they're saying all the time.
But I think that is it's so apparent that the mix is so off, or like intentionally. I think he did it intentionally, and it's almost like the bits like it's either someone whispering and it's hard to hear, or they're talking normally but there's so much soundtrack or diegetic noise that you can't tell what they're saying. So I feel like,
I hope so, because
he's too good not to do it on purpose. I hope that's the case. But then I think that's kind of what we were saying earlier, in that you don't need to fully get every little bit of line of dialogue. I would love to watch it again with subtitles just to pick up on bits I've missed. But
yeah,
even with those like indecipherable moments, we still got our head around it and enjoyed it. But it is definitely an interesting choice on how to do sound, because a lot of people are going to have problems with that, I think.
It was quite disruptive. I struggled a little bit because I think I was putting quite a lot of energy in. I'm probably not as smart as you in terms of reading a film
cheers, mate.
Off the bat. So I was still trying to figure out, what they were saying, as if like every single line they were saying was of vital importance to the storyline, which meant that I found myself like straining a little bit watching the film, like trying to figure out what they were saying.
But I think with a Nolan film, it's not quite as important. Like, he still has some clunky bits of dialogue. For someone that is regarded as such a great director and just artist in the genre as it is, he does have some clunky dialogue. He does have some very expositional scenes where it's just someone explaining the plot to the audience, which is fine, because when your film's this complicated, you kind of need that.
Yeah.
But it also means you can't, like, it's never going to be 100% perfect, so you've got to take that with a pinch of salt. So, like,
it makes it difficult, though, when they're saying, so basically this whole time thing is... Yeah,
that is kind of the problem, in that they'll be explaining very important things to help you grasp what's going on, and then there'll be a drill going off in the background or an alarm somewhere. But yeah, it's almost like Nolan's just say, you know what, fuck it, just trust me, you'll get there, it's fine. Yeah. And in fairness, we did, but I can see how some people would struggle if they're not as accustomed to his style of filmmaking.
No, definitely. And not to be, trying to pick it apart too much, but I wasn't entirely satisfied with character development, or just the story in general felt a little bit secondary, I suppose, to the main themes at hand.
Yeah, 100%. Like, the fact that John David Washington's character is just regarded as the protagonist. They don't actually ever give him a name.
Yeah.
So, what is it? And Robert Pattinson, who's great in this. I really like Robert Pattinson, but he's just referred to as Neil. Like, there's no other
Yeah.
background development. It's just he's Neil. He probably with British Secret Service, and that's all you really need to know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same going throughout the whole thing for most of the characters, in that there's not really much development there at all.
Yeah.
But
Which is a little bit disappointing when you've got a film that's 2.5 hours long, because although I did in a roundabout way end up feeling invested in the characters enough, I felt like that could have been achieved earlier. And the moments where emotionally I could have been kind of toyed about with a bit by the creators, I just felt like they weren't moments that really hit home for me so much, because I was like, well, yeah, they're just like they're a little bit robotic.
yeah, I did think it was the weakest part of the film. Like, I would have liked a bit more, but then at the same time, I never felt like distracted by how shallow these people were. I was invested enough that I didn't mind. Any other film or any other filmmaker might not have pulled it off, but I think it worked for the film.
Yeah.
But the performances are all good. John David Washington's a really likable lead role.
Yeah, I was gonna say we need to mention something positive
Well, yeah,
because we did
he's
actually
great.
enjoy the film.
Robert Pattinson, I've always really liked Robert Pattinson. I saw The Twilights back in the day, not for that reason. They were shit films, but a girl I was dating liked them as well, and Kristen Stewart's in them. But he was really good. Elizabeth Debicki, who we weren't overly familiar with before, who plays the antagonist's wife. She was she was probably the heart of the film if there was one.
Yeah,
But then at the same time, my one problem with her is that her main character trait was I love my son, and
it did feel a little bit one-dimensional. Maybe.
yeah, because Chris Nolan, he's got the tendency to fall back on this character has a dead wife, so like that's what we're gonna that's his like moral dilemma. But for hers, it was she's not dead, but she's obsessed with her son. There was one bit that I almost laughed at where some of the leads were talking about these plans that were going on in very confusing fashion, and someone says, "Oh, it will mean that everyone will die," and then camera goes to her and she just says, "Including my son." And I was like, "Fuck's sake, love! Like, there's bigger things going on than your fucking kid." But but again, that's more down to the lack of time and detail given to the characters. But she was really good. I enjoyed her.
No, she was. My biggest laugh came from the cameo appearance of Michael Caine, who seems to be a regular on our show as well as every single Christopher Nolan film.
The man that made Jaws 4 is in Tenet. But yeah, he's probably in it for about a minute. Not even that.
Something like that. But he must have a clause somewhere where like he first appeared in a Nolan film and then he was like, I need at least 60 seconds of screen time on everything you produce for the next 25 years. Because he's not failed to appear in some way in any of the films that have come out.
I mean, it could just be that they get on and they work well together.
I mean, yeah, but there's loyalty and then there's loyalty.
All right, well, if it's paying for his kids' like college and mortgages, then fair play. Michael Caine's getting the business done.
I don't know who it was that Michael Caine saw Christopher Nolan killing in a back alley somewhere, but he's definitely not letting forget about it.
Christ. What else? The cinema, like, it's a Christopher Nolan film, so it's going to look fucking great.
Yeah.
And it was Hoyt van Hoytema again, who's worked with him on Interstellar and Dunkirk, as well as got an extensive back catalogue, which I can't even be bothered to list. But yeah, so it looked amazing, as you'd expect. And with the constant bits of effects of certain people being normal and certain people moving backwards through time, which it worked really well. I thought it looked great.
The choreography was incredibly impressive. The way that it felt so legitimate. Because you know that you can't do that. Like I've actually tried to, for video, look like I'm moving backwards in order to recreate that kind of thing. I did something for work once that was something similar to that, and I looked ridiculous. Yeah. I looked ridiculous filming it, but I didn't look normal when I saw the footage back. I looked incredibly clunky. So I know that they probably didn't actually act most of those things, but the way that they managed to superimpose them with, I
Yeah.
assume, lots of double shots.
Well,
and
it's one of
things.
those things I'd like to get like the behind the scenes and see exactly how they do. Because I think you're right. I think they are shooting it like multiple takes of the same shot and then imposing people in the different patterns in the same shot. But it would be interesting to see a behind the scenes of how they exactly did it because it looks great.
Yeah, but for the scenes where they choreographed people interacting, moving forwards and backwards, that kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Yeah, some of the action scenes, the action sequences, especially like there's quite a lot. Won't get into it, but there's a very large battle, I guess you'd call it, at the
Yeah.
end, and some of the destruction around them. That's sort of half it's playing in real time, half it in reverse. It looks ridiculous. It's so good, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think you can tell we enjoyed it. It's just there are a few stumbling blocks before getting to the enjoyment.
A few plot holes here and there.
Yeah, and again, it's hard to give too much because there are some narrative choices and explanations that don't quite add up. But we don't want to say them and give anything away. But no, overall enjoyed it. Looks and act great, sounds great, minus the not being able to hear dialogue half the time. And the acting is great, but then this is all stuff you'd expect from a Christopher Nolan film, so
No, exactly.
it's pretty damn good.
So let's get some ratings. What are you gonna say?
I was really umming and ahhing about this. I'm going to go a 7 out of 10. Only because I was thinking an 8, but then I really enjoy some of Christopher Nolan's films. I think they're amazing. So I think I'm being slightly harsher based on comparing it to his old work as well. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like a cop out, but I was umming and ahhing between 7 and 8, and I stuck with a 7.
That's 2 episodes in a row. We've got
I know.
a matching score.
I'm basically the same. I didn't feel like it was his strongest work. It was enjoyable, but I feel like it could have been a bit better.
Yeah, exactly. All